Before we start, kindly subscribe to my channel and tell me, where in the universe are you watching from? Dorian Kane stood in the kitchen of his small space diner, the iron fork wiping his hands on a towel. Business had been slow today, but that was normal on the outer fringes of the galaxy. He yawned and checked the time. It was late, and all he wanted was a good meal before bed. With a tap on his wrist console, he placed an order from a shady but reliable supplier. 1 crate of fresh Vornian beef, he muttered, confirming the purchase. A few minutes later, a loud thud echoed from the docking bay. That was fast. Too fast. Dorian frowned and grabbed his plasma knife, just in case. When he opened the cargo hatch, he expected to see a crate of frozen meat. Instead, a metal pod the size of a small closet sat in the middle of the bay. Steam hissed from the edges as the door creaked open. A figure stepped out. Dorian's brain struggled to process what he was looking at. Not meat, not even clothes. A woman, an alien woman, stood before him, her posture rigid like a soldier. Shackles bound her wrists, and she looked furious. Golden markings ran across her collarbone and arms, glowing faintly under the dim lights. Dorian took an automatic step back. I think there's been a mistake. The woman's sharp gaze locked onto him. You are the one who ordered me. Her voice was rich, layered with an accent he couldn't place. What? No, I ordered meat. She took a slow step forward. Even in chains, there was something powerful about the way she moved. I was taken from my home. Sold, but now I am here. Her eyes narrowed. You claim you did not ask for me. Dorian's pulse quickened. He wasn't afraid of much, but this was way beyond his pay grade. Look, lady, I run a restaurant. I don't buy people. That's illegal. The woman studied him for a long moment, then did something that made Dorian's stomach drop. She dropped to one knee. I accept this fate. I will be your mate. Dorian choked. What? She lifted her chin, her expression unreadable. My people do not sell slaves. If I was sent to you, then it was as a gift. A bride. Dorian took another step back, holding up his hands. No. I don't know what backwater tradition you've got, but I'm not in the market for a wife. I just wanted a steak. Her expression darkened. Are you rejecting me? Yes, Dorian practically shouted. Not because of you, but because this is insane. The air in the room suddenly felt heavier. The woman's gaze hardened, and when she spoke, her voice was dangerously calm. In my culture, rejection is an insult. To refuse an offered mate is to challenge them in combat. Dorian groaned. Of course it is. The alien woman straightened, her shackles rattling slightly. You will fight me, or you will accept me. Dorian exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. There's no third option. No. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Dorian let out a dry laugh. All right, fine. Let's say I do fight you. How exactly do I win? She tilted her head, considering. You must defeat me in battle or prove your dominance. Dorian narrowed his eyes. Define dominance. Before she could answer, the restaurant's comm system blared to life. Incoming transmission from the Exalvoran war fleet. Warlord Cathal requests an audience. The woman's expression didn't change, but Dorian could swear he saw the corner of her lips twitch in amusement. Ah, she murmured. My father has arrived. Dorian stared at her, then at the flashing screen, then back at her. He sighed. I should have just ordered a salad. Dorian Kane stood frozen as the word sank in. Her father. As in the warlord Cathal, the most feared military leader of the Salvoran Empire, the guy who burned planets for fun. Dorian exhaled. Okay. No need to panic. The alien woman, his unwanted warrior bride, gave him a slow, unreadable look. You are panicking. I'm not panicking. Dorian lied, turning toward the comm screen. He tapped a button, and a massive alien face filled the screen. a face twice as scared and twice as angry as his daughter's. Cathal's deep, growling voice rumbled through the ship. Human. Dorian gave an awkward wave. Bah, hi. The warlord's glowing red eyes narrowed. You are the one who has claimed my daughter as a mate. Dorian shot a look at the woman beside him. That's a strong word. More like accidental misunderstanding. Cathal's nostrils flared. A warrior does not misunderstand. If she is there, then the bond is sealed. Sealed. Dorian felt a headache forming. Look, warlord. Sir, your daughter is great. She's strong, smart, definitely capable of killing me in my sleep. But I'm not looking for a wife. I run a restaurant. I just wanted meat. Cathal's glare deepened. Then you insult her. Dorian groaned. I'm really not trying to. The woman beside him folded her arms. You already have. Fantastic. Dorian rubbed his face. So what now? You blow up my ship. Take your daughter back. Call the whole thing off. Cathal let out a low, thunderous laugh. No, human. You must prove yourself. Dorian's stomach dropped. That sounds like a bad deal for me. Cathal grinned, showing razor-sharp teeth. You will face General Vokreth in the arena of honor. Dorian blinked. Who? The woman beside him stiffened. Vokreth was once my intended mate. Dorian spun toward her. You had a fiancé. And you didn't mention this before. She lifted her chin. Because it did not matter. I was given to you. Oh, great. So now I have to fight your ex. Dorian threw up his hands. Perfect. Wonderful. Let's make it a family reunion. Cathal's voice rumbled like an approaching storm. If you win, you will have my blessing. If you lose, Vokreth will take my daughter, and you will die. Dorian gave a tight, nervous smile. No pressure, then. The arena of honor. Hours later, Dorian found himself standing in a massive alien coliseum, its walls lined with thousands of roaring salvorans. The air smelled of metal, blood, and burning fuel. Across from him stood General Vokreth. The guy was huge, easily 7 feet tall, 4 arms, and covered in black battle armor. His skin gleamed like polished stone, and his sharp fangs dripped with venom. Dorian sighed. Yeah, this is totally fair. His alien bride stood at the edge of the arena, watching silently. Dorian turned to her. Any last-minute tips? Survive, she said. Helpful. A loud gong rang through the arena. Vokreth charged. Dorian barely had time to dodge as the alien's massive fists slammed into the ground, leaving cracks in the stone. Dorian rolled, scrambling backward. All right, Kane. Think. He had 0 chance of winning in a strength match. But maybe he didn't have to. Dorian darted toward the arena's weapons rack. He grabbed the first thing he saw. A staff. Vokreth smirked. Pathetic. Dorian twirled the staff, trying to look confident. We'll see. Vokreth lunged again. Dorian ducked low, sweeping the staff under the alien's legs. Vokreth stumbled, but didn't fall. Dorian barely had time to roll away before a massive fist came down where his head had been. Sweat dripped down his back. All right. New plan. If he couldn't win with strength, maybe he could outsmart him. The trick. Dorian saw a pile of sand near the arena's edge. An idea sparked. He darted toward it, making it look like he was fleeing. Vokreth roared in triumph and charged after him. Dorian skidded to a stop, grabbing a fistful of sand and hurling it straight into the alien's eyes. Vokreth howled, blinded. Dorian didn't hesitate. He spun the staff, smacking Vokreth across the jaw, then swung low, sweeping his legs out from under him. Vokreth hit the ground. Hard. The crowd went silent. Dorian, panting, pointed the staff at Vokreth's throat. Yield. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Vokreth growled and bowed his head. The arena erupted in cheers. Cathal's voice boomed. The human has proven himself. Dorian turned to his alien wife. She stared at him, expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she smiled. Dorian groaned. Does this mean we're actually married now? She tilted her head. Would that be so terrible? Dorian had no answer for that. Dorian Kane had won. Somehow, against all odds, he had defeated General Vokreth in the arena of honor. The cheers of the Salvoran crowd still echoed in his ears as he stood in the center of the Colosseum, catching his breath. Across from him, Vokreth slowly pushed himself up, his expression unreadable. He gave Dorian one last glare before turning on his heel and stalking away, defeated. Dorian exhaled. Well, that happened. His so-called alien bride approached him, her eyes sharp with curiosity. You are more cunning than you look. Dorian wiped sweat from his forehead. I'll take that as a compliment. A deep, booming voice rang out across the arena. The human is proven his worth. Dorian winced. He had almost forgotten about the giant warlord watching from above. Cathal, leader of the Salvoran Empire, stood from his throne at the highest point of the Colosseum. His massive frame loomed over the gathered warriors as he spoke. As the victor, you have earned my daughter's hand. She is yours. Dorian's stomach twisted. Oh, right. That part. The alien woman beside him raised an eyebrow. You sound disappointed. No, I mean. Dorian struggled to find the right words. I didn't exactly plan on getting married today. She studied him carefully. You defeated my intended mate. You faced death and emerged victorious. By all Salvoran traditions, we are bound. Dorian sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I didn't fight because I wanted to claim you. I fought because I didn't want to die. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. You fought to survive. Exactly. She was silent for a moment. Then, with a thoughtful nod, she said, That is acceptable. Dorian blinked. Wait. What? She crossed her arms. You have earned me, but if you do not claim me, I will not force the bond. Dorian let out a long breath. So, we're good. No forced marriage. No deadly honor duels. She smirked. For now. Dorian wasn't sure if he liked that answer. A sudden change in plans. Cathal's voice boomed again. Human, you have in yourself, but your trials are not over. Dorian groaned. Of course they're not. The warlord stepped forward, his massive armor gleaming under the Colosseum lights. There is still one final matter to settle. Dorian tensed. Let me guess. More fighting. Cathal shook his head. Your presence has complicated things. His gaze flicked toward his daughter. She was meant to marry Vokreth, forming an alliance between our clans. Now that alliance is in jeopardy. Dorian swallowed hard. I'm guessing that's bad. Cathal's expression darkened. If war comes because of this, the blood will be on your hands. Dorian clenched his jaw. So what do you want me to do? The warlord studied him for a long moment. Then, to Dorian's complete shock, Cathal's lips curved into a grin. You will serve as my daughter's mate and protector. Dorian choked. I thought we just agreed I didn't have to. Cathal held up a hand. You are not bound in the traditional sense, but until this political matter is resolved, you will stay by her side. Dorian frowned. And if I refuse? The warlord's grin widened. Then I will kill you. Dorian sighed, looking at the woman beside him. Well, guess I'm sticking around. She smirked. I am pleased. Dorian rolled his eyes. Yeah, you would be. A warrior's promise. Later that night, Dorian found himself standing on the balcony of a massive alien palace. The Salvoran capital city stretched out beneath him, glowing towers reaching toward the stars. His unexpected wife stood beside him, gazing at the city in silence. Dorian exhaled, running a hand through his hair. So, what now? She glanced at him. Now we prepare. For what? She turned fully toward him, her gaze steady. You may not have chosen this, but you are in it now. Dorian met her eyes. And what about you? Do you even want this? She hesitated. Then, slowly, she said, I do not despise the idea. Dorian smirked. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. She raised an eyebrow. You are mocking me. A little. She huffed, but there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. Then her expression grew serious. Vokreth will not accept this loss. He will return. Dorian's smirk faded. And when he does, her voice was firm. We will face him together. For some reason, Dorian found himself believing her. He didn't know how or why, but one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. Dorian Kane had officially seen it all. A few days ago, he was running a small restaurant, flipping steaks and dealing with rude customers. Now he was standing in an alien palace, engaged to a warrior princess, and possibly about to start an interstellar war. Yeah, life had taken a weird turn. He leaned against the balcony railing, gazing over the Salvoran capital. The city pulsed with alien energy, hovering transport ships, glowing neon markets, towering spires of black steel. It was beautiful, in a dangerous kind of way. Beside him, his bride stood in silence, watching the horizon. She had barely spoken since their fight in the arena, but her presence was calm, strong, unreadable. Dorian sighed. All right, we should probably talk about this whole situation. Well, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. For starters, your dad practically ordered me to be your protector. But let's be real. You're 10 times stronger than me. I'd be useless in a fight. She considered this. True. Dorian frowned. You could have at least lied to make me feel better. She smirked. Would you prefer I be dishonest? Dorian groaned. No, but a little sugarcoating wouldn't hurt. She studied him for a moment, then said, You underestimate yourself. Dorian blinked. Come again. You survived the arena, she pointed out. You defeated Vokreth, not with strength, but with strategy. That is a warrior's skill. Dorian exhaled. Yeah, but tricking a guy with sand isn't exactly hero material. She tilted her head. Perhaps, but I have learned something about you, Dorian Kane. Oh, and what's that? She stepped closer, her voice quiet but firm. You refuse to lose. Dorian swallowed. There was something about the way she said it, something almost admiring. Before he could respond, a loud beeping noise interrupted them. A Salvoran guard rushed onto the balcony, his expression grim. Princess, the warlord requests your presence. There is news. Dorian exchanged a glance with her. Something was wrong. The warning. Kethal stood at the center of the war room, a massive holographic display hovering above the table. Red warning lights blinked across the map, marking a fleet of ships moving toward Salvoran space. Dorian didn't need to be a strategist to know that was bad. The warlord's deep voice rumbled through the chamber. Vokreth is making his move. Dorian tensed. Already. Kothal's jaw tightened. He has gathered warriors from rival clans who seek to challenge my rule. They see your victory in the arena as a sign of weakness. Dorian groaned. So basically, I accidentally caused a coup. Kothal's eyes flashed. You did not cause this. Vokreth has long desired power. You simply gave him an excuse. Dorian turned to the warrior princess. All right. So what's the plan? She studied the display. Vokreth will not attack the capital immediately. He will seek to weaken our defenses first. Kothal nodded. He will strike our outposts, cut off supply routes, and turn our allies against us. Dorian crossed his arms. And I'm guessing negotiating isn't an option. Kothal's deep laugh shook the room. You are amusing, human. Dorian sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. The warrior princess turned to her father. Allow me to lead a strike force. We will intercept his fleet before it reaches our borders. Kafal hesitated. You would risk yourself. She lifted her chin. I am your daughter. I do not fear battle. Dorian groaned. Of course you don't. Kafal studied her, then nodded. Very well. You will take a warship and a squadron of fighters. End this before it begins. Dorian frowned. And what about me? Kafal smirked. You will go with her. Dorian's stomach dropped. Wait, what? The warlord's voice left no room for argument. You are her mate and protector. You will fight at her side. Dorian turned to the warrior princess. You're not actually okay with this, right? She gave him a considering look. Then, to his horror, she nodded. I accept. Dorian threw up his hands. Oh, come on. Into battle. An hour later, Dorian found himself aboard a Xalvoran warship, staring at a weapons rack filled with deadly alien blasters, plasma blades, and energy shields. His wife approached him, holding out a sleek, silver weapon. Take this. Dorian hesitated. You sure you want to arm me? She smirked. It is better than you fighting with sand again. Dorian groaned, grabbing the blaster. I'm never gonna live that down, am I? No. The warship rumbled as the engines powered up. A voice echoed through the intercom. Approaching enemy fleet in 10 minutes. Dorian took a deep breath, his grip tightening on the blaster. So, any last-minute advice? She met his gaze, her expression steady. Stay close to me. Dorian's heart pounded. Something told him this was going to be the craziest fight of his life, and he was probably going to regret every second of it. Dorian Kane had never been in a space battle before. Sure, he'd played plenty of flight simulators as a kid, but none of that prepared him for the real thing. Now he stood on the bridge of a Xalvoran warship, gripping the railing as alarms blared around him. The massive viewing screen in front of him showed the approaching enemy fleet, a swarm of dark, jagged warships cutting through space like predators. The warrior princess stood beside him, her expression calm and unreadable. She was dressed in full battle armor, the metal plating reflecting the glow of the control panels. Dorian swallowed hard. So, I'm guessing this is the part where we come up with a plan, right? She didn't look at him. The plan is simple. We win. Dorian exhaled. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? A Xalvoran officer turned to them. Princess, the enemy fleet is hailing us. The warrior princess nodded. Put them through. The screen flickered, and suddenly, Vokreth's face filled the display. His sharp features were twisted in a sneer, his armor marked with the insignia of his clan. His red eyes burned with hatred. Ah, Vokreth said, his voice dripping with disdain. The little human and his stolen bride. Dorian sighed. You know, I'm really getting tired of the insults. Vokreth ignored him. His gaze locked onto the warrior princess. You should be standing beside me, not this pathetic creature. She didn't flinch. You lost your right to claim me when you fell in the arena. Vokreth's expression darkened. That was a trick. A dishonorable, cowardly. Dorian crossed his arms. Oh, get over it. You lost fair and square. Vokreth growled. Enjoy your last moments, human. I will tear you apart. The screen cut out. Dorian turned to the princess. So, I take it negotiations didn't go well. She smirked. Prepare for battle. Chaos in the stars. The moment the enemy ships opened fire, the warship shook violently, nearly knocking Dorian off his feet. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge. The Xalvoran crew moved with precision, shouting commands as the ship's weapons came to life. Dorian gripped the railing. So, do I do anything, or should I just stand here and scream? The princess handed him a communicator. Come with me. Dorian blinked. Wait, where are we going? She didn't answer. She was already moving. Dorian groaned. but he followed, boarding the enemy ship. Before he could fully process what was happening, Dorian found himself inside a small fighter craft, seated next to the warrior princess as they sped toward Vokreth's flagship. "Why are we doing this again?" Dorian shouted over the roar of the engines. She piloted the craft with expert skill. "If we take out Vokreth directly, the battle will end." Dorian groaned. "Great, because sneaking onto an enemy warship always goes well in the movies." Their fighters swerved through enemy fire, dodging blasts with impossible precision. Then suddenly, they were inside the hangar. The moment they landed, Dorian barely had time to unbuckle before enemy warriors swarmed them. The princess was a blur of motion, slicing through the enemy with ruthless efficiency. Dorian, meanwhile, fumbled with his blaster. Okay, I can do this." A warrior lunged at him. Dorian yelped, fired wildly, and by some miracle, actually hit the guy. He blinked. "Huh, that worked." The princess smirked. "Keep up." Dorian groaned, but he followed as she led them deeper into the ship. The final confrontation. The doors to the command room burst open, and there stood Vokreth, waiting for them. The massive alien warrior drew his blade, his red eyes gleaming with fury. Dorian exhaled. "Oh, good. A boss fight." Vokreth sneered. "You should have stayed on your little planet, human." The princess stepped forward, raising her weapon. "This ends now." Vokreth lunged, and the battle began. Vokreth moved like a beast set free, his massive blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. The entire command room shook as his strikes clashed against the warrior princess's weapon, sending sparks flying. Dorian stood frozen for a split second, gripping his blaster tight. This was insane. The two warriors were a blur of speed and strength, moving so fast that Dorian could barely keep up. The princess dodged a crushing overhead swing, spinning low and delivering a brutal kick to Vokreth's ribs. The force sent him stumbling back, but he recovered quickly, roaring with fury. "You dare challenge me again." Vokreth spat, wiping a trickle of dark blood from his mouth. "You belong at my side, not fighting against me." The princess's eyes burned with defiance. "I belong to no one." Dorian found himself grinning. "See, that's what I like about you." Vokreth turned his gaze on Dorian, eyes full of hatred. "And you, filthy human, you should not even be here." Dorian sighed. "Yeah, trust me, I didn't exactly plan this." Vokreth lunged toward him. Dorian barely had time to react before the princess intercepted the attack, knocking Vokreth's blade aside. The force of the impact sent her sliding back. Dorian raised his blaster, aiming for Vokreth's head. Before he could fire, Vokreth ripped the weapon from his hands and crushed it in his grip. Dorian blinked. "Okay, so much for that plan." Vokreth swung again, but this time, Dorian ducked just in time. The massive blade sliced through a control panel instead, sending a shower of sparks into the air. Dorian scrambled backward. "All right, new plan. Maybe we..." A sudden explosion rocked the entire ship. A ship in chaos. Dorian barely managed to keep his footing as the floor beneath them lurched violently. Warning sirens blared, red emergency lights flashing across the command room. The princess frowned. What was that? Dorian looked around. "I don't know, but I don't think it was part of the plan." A voice crackled over the ship's intercom, distorted but urgent. "Emergency. Hull breach detected. Ship losing stability." Vokreth's eyes widened with fury. "You fools. You damaged my ship." Dorian pointed at him. "Hey, that's on you. Maybe don't build your control room with explosive panels." The princess didn't waste time arguing. She turned to Dorian. "We need to leave. Now." Dorian nodded. "Yeah, I'm all for that." Vokreth growled, staggering as another explosion shook the ship. "This is not over," he snarled. The princess met his glare. "No, it is not." Then, without another word, she grabbed Dorian's wrist and pulled him toward the exit. Escape or die. The halls of the ship were in chaos. Fires raged, smoke filled the corridors, and Salvoran warriors rushed in every direction, shouting orders or trying to control the damage. Dorian coughed, covering his mouth as they ran. I'd like to point out that this is, by far, the worst date I've ever been on. The princess didn't slow down. We must reach the hangar. Dorian groaned. Right, the hangar. The same one that's probably on fire. They rounded a corner, and a squad of enemy warriors blocked their path. Dorian skidded to a halt. Of course. The princess didn't hesitate. She launched herself into battle, moving like a whirlwind of destruction. Dorian grabbed a fallen blaster from the floor. All right, let's see if my luck holds up. He aimed, fired, and actually hit one of the warriors. Dorian blinked. Huh, maybe I'm getting the hang of this. Another warrior charged at him. Dorian panicked, swung the blaster like a club, and knocked the guy out cold. The princess finished the last opponent with a precise strike and turned to him. Not bad. Dorian grinned. I prefer amazing, but I'll take it. An explosion tore through the hallway, sending debris raining down. The princess grabbed his hand. No more delays. We go now. Dorian nodded. Agreed. Breaking free. They'd finally reached the hangar. Fighter ships were already scrambling to escape, and the entire structure shook violently as more explosions tore through the warship's hull. Their own fighter, the one they had arrived in, sat near the exit, still intact. Dorian ran toward it. I can't believe we actually made it. A massive figure landed in front of them, blocking their path. Vokreth. Despite the fires raging around them, despite the fact that his ship was literally falling apart, his eyes burned with pure hatred. You will not leave, he snarled. Dorian groaned. Come on, man. Read the room. The princess stepped forward, gripping her weapon tight. Vokreth lifted his massive blade. Dorian sighed. Oh, for the love off. Vokreth charged. Vokreth charged like an unstoppable force, his massive blade raised high. Dorian barely had time to jump aside as the enemy warlord's weapon slammed into the ground, splitting the metal floor. Sparks and smoke rose around them, making the entire hangar feel like a battlefield drenched in chaos. The warrior princess met Vokreth head-on. Their weapons clashed in a violent shower of sparks, the sheer force shaking the air around them. Dorian stumbled back. Yep, this is where I should probably hide. Instead, he found himself gripping a fallen blaster, heart pounding. A battle of strength and will. The princess moved like lightning, dodging Vokreth's attacks with grace and speed. Each time his blade came down, she twisted away at the last second, striking back with precision. But Vokreth was strong. Too strong. A powerful strike from him sent the princess flying backward, crashing into a pile of wreckage. Dorian's heart stopped. Hey, you okay? She groaned, pushing herself up. But Vokreth was already moving in for the kill. Dorian didn't think. He just acted. Hey, ugly, he yelled, raising his stolen blaster. Vokreth turned just in time to see Dorian pull the trigger. The blast hit the warlord square in the chest. For a moment, Vokreth staggered, his armor scorched from the shot. Then, slowly, he turned back, eyes burning with rage. Dorian gulped. Oh, that just made him mad, didn't it? With a roar, Vokreth charged at Dorian. Dorian panicked. Nope, nope, nope. He dove aside as the massive blade swung past him, cutting clean through a nearby ship. Dorian scrambled to his feet. Okay, new plan. Vokreth grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Dorian gasped, struggling against the iron grip. His vision blurred. Vokreth sneered. Weak. Unworthy. Then, just as Vokreth was about to finish him, a blade pierced through his side. Vokreth's eyes widened in shock. The princess stood behind him, gripping her weapon tightly. She twisted the blade, and Vokreth let out a strangled roar. Then, with a final, shuddering breath, he collapsed. The escape. Dorian hit the ground, coughing as he tried to catch his breath. That was way too close. The princess held out a hand. Dorian took it, letting her pull him to his feet. Their eyes met. For a moment, there were no words, just relief, exhaustion, and something deeper. But then, another explosion ripped through the hangar. Dorian flinched. Right, ship's still exploding. Let's go. They ran to their fighter, climbing inside just as flames engulfed the hangar. The princess took the controls, guiding the ship through the chaos. Dorian buckled in. So, we're not gonna die, right? She smirked. Hold on. With a burst of speed, they shot out of the crumbling warship, dodging debris as they raced into open space. Behind them, Vokreth's flagship erupted into a massive explosion, breaking apart in a brilliant display of fire and metal. Dorian let out a breath. Okay, that was intense. The princess glanced at him. You fought well. Dorian blinked. Wait, was that a compliment? She smirked. A rare one. Dorian grinned. Well, I'll take what I can get. For a moment, they just sat there, silent, watching the remnants of the battle. Then the princess looked at him, her expression unreadable. You are not like other humans. Dorian raised an eyebrow. Good different or bad different? She studied him for a moment. Then she leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek. Dorian's brain short-circuited. She pulled back, smirking. Decide for yourself. Dorian stared, trying to form words. Before he could say anything, a message flashed across the ship's control panel. An incoming transmission. Dorian frowned. Wonder who that could be. He pressed the button. And then, a very angry alien warlord's face appeared on the screen. Dorian's stomach dropped. Oh, come on. You're still alive. The princess tensed. It seems the battle is not over yet. Dorian groaned. I hate this guy. And just like that, a new fight began. Dorian stared at the screen in disbelief. Vokreth's battered face filled the transmission feed, his eyes burning with unrelenting fury. Smoke and flickering lights surrounded him, evidence that his escape pod had barely survived the destruction of his flagship. You think this is over, human? Vokreth growled. You have humiliated me. You have stolen my bride. You have defied the Talvoran way. His voice dropped into a dangerous whisper. I will make you suffer. Dorian sighed, rubbing his temples. Okay, first of all, she's not a prize. She's a person. Second, I didn't steal anything. And third, seriously, man, take the loss and move on. The princess narrowed her eyes. Vokreth, you shame yourself. A true warrior accepts defeat. Vokreth's jaw clenched. I do not accept defeat. Not from you, and especially not from a weakling like him. Dorian huffed. You know, I'm getting really tired of you calling me weak. Vokreth's lips curled into a cruel smile. Then prove me wrong. An alert blared on the ship's console. Dorian glanced at the controls, and his stomach dropped. A fleet of warships had appeared on their radar, emerging from the shadows of a nearby asteroid field. Dorian blinked. Are you kidding me? You had backup this whole time. Vokreth smirked. I always have a backup plan. The transmission cut off. Outside the cockpit, dozens of Exalvoran ships locked onto them with glowing red targeting systems. Dorian let out a long breath. Welp, we're dead. Outnumbered and outgunned. The princess quickly took the controls, eyes sharp. Not yet. Dorian strapped in. Tell me you have some kind of genius plan. She didn't answer. Instead, she pushed the ship's engines to maximum, darting between the asteroid field at high speed. Blaster fire rained down behind them, the Exalvoran warships in hot pursuit. Dorian gritted his teeth. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna assume this is the part where I scream in terror. The princess dodged another blast, her hand steady on the controls. You trust me, don't you? Dorian hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I do. She smirked. Then hold on. She suddenly flipped the ship upside down, sending them into a sharp dive between two massive asteroids. Dorian's stomach flipped. I regret everything. The pursuing warships weren't as fast. One of them clipped an asteroid, spinning out of control and exploding on impact. Dorian whooped. One down. Still about 20 more to go. The princess's gaze flicked to the scanners. We need reinforcements. Dorian's brain clicked into gear. Wait. Reinforcements. He fumbled with the ship's comms. If I can get a message out. The ship shook violently as another blast struck their shields. Dorian cursed, struggling to hold the controls steady. Come on, work with me here. The light blinked on. Transmission signal active. Dorian took a deep breath and shouted into the mic. Static. Then. Copy that, Kane. We've been tracking your signal. Help is on the way. Dorian laughed in disbelief. Yes, I could kiss whoever just said that. The princess raised an eyebrow. Would you now? Dorian blinked. I mean, you know what? Let's focus on survival. She smirked. Reinforcements arrive. Moments later, a fleet of Earth ships dropped out of hyperspace. Dorian had never been so happy to see human warships in his life. About time, he shouted. The Exalvoran ships hesitated for a brief moment. Then Vokreth's voice boomed over their comms. Destroy them all. The battle erupted. Human and Exalvoran ships clashed in a chaotic dance of fire and destruction. The princess maneuvered their ship through the crossfire, dodging explosions while Dorian provided targeting assistance. I swear, Dorian grumbled, firing at an enemy fighter. If we survive this, I'm taking a vacation. She smirked. With me? Dorian choked. Well, I wasn't gonna go alone. She chuckled. Good. Victory and the future. With the help of Earth's fleet, the battle turned in their favor. One by one, the Exalvoran ships retreated, including Vokreth's own damaged vessel. Dorian exhaled. That's right. Run, you big sore loser. The princess nodded. This war is not over. But today, we have won. Dorian looked at her, something warm settling in his chest. Yeah, we did. A voice crackled over the comms. Dorian Kane, report to the fleet flagship immediately. Dorian groaned. Great. Time to get yelled at by my commanding officer. The princess tilted her head. You risked your life. You fought beside me. They should honor you. Dorian chuckled. You don't know my boss. She placed a hand on his. Then let's face him together. Dorian met her gaze, heart pounding. Yeah, together. As their ship set course for the flagship, Dorian couldn't help but smile. He had ordered fresh meat. Instead, he got a warrior princess, a galactic war, and maybe something more. And honestly, he wouldn't trade it for anything.